UFC 302 just days away. Can Dustin Poirier finally get the UFC lightweight title against Islam Makhachev? Let's talk about it. It's time for Technical Difficulties. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Luke Thomas and this is Technical Difficulties. This is where we typically look at the weekend's best fights afterwards. Today we're going to go ahead and look at it before the fight happens. Now it's very difficult to know what's going to happen when Dustin Poirier fights Islam Makhachev, but we're trying to make a calculation about what are some of the most likely scenarios that the fight could go to. It could be the case that Dustin Poirier knocks him out inside the first round with a big punch. That is certainly on the table, but I think one of the things you have to really grapple with, no pun intended, is how they're going to match up in the grappling. And we're not going to have a comprehensive look at it, but obviously everyone is kind of talking about what Islam Makhachev could do, similar to Khabib, similar to other people, find the back, get the choke. And I wanted to look at some of the scenarios that Dustin Poirier has found himself in recent memory, let's say, not for the full totality of his career, but recent memory, what those situations look like and what some of the tendencies are that Poirier has, both good and bad, that you kind of have to pay attention to and think about when Makhachev matches up with him. So let's do that now. All right, first things first, good down blocking. You'll see that when someone shoots a double from outside, Dustin Poirier has pretty good defense from out there. It's usually the second or third or sometimes fourth or fifth attempts that they have to go through before they can get ultimately the takedown or the back or whatever they're looking for. But he does have good first order down blocking. It's the chain of wrestling where he begins to have trouble with, and that's just very typical of anybody, right? I mean, Khabib's, I think, overall takedown percentage from a career is less than 50%, but look at what he's able to do in the end. So just something to think about. And also, like when he's up against the fence and he has his base split and he's captured a wrist, sometimes he likes to go 2-on-1. You'll see he's quite effective at that. That's not really any of the thing that holds him up. It's the choices, to the extent he gets in trouble, it comes after that. Also want to make a point, don't forget, Dustin Poirier is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He does have good jiu-jitsu himself. And in fact, in the Michael Chandler fight, you saw a pretty good example of that. All right, second, goes square and gets backed up. This tends to be a bit of a problem for him at times, where he can get backed up with Khabib throwing kind of wild strikes that could have gotten him countered, but because there's a threat there, you kind of just sort of naturally backpedal. You'll see that a lot with him. And then he tends to go square. Sometimes it's the result of anticipating pressure. Sometimes it's actually the direct threat where you're throwing strikes and now you're facing your opponent. You don't have your more bladed stance or your base split potentially. And obviously when you go square, that's what's going to set up the takedown. Like the more you're facing opponent and you're stationary and your hips are like locked onto theirs, it's going to make the takedown significantly easier. That is something that does show up in the tape pretty consistently. He peels hooks with his hands. Now, that is not necessarily wrong. And in fact, this is one of the ones I would sort of consider to be on the good side for the most part. And the reason I say that is because obviously there's a right and a wrong way to get hooks off of you. And if you're not really addressing the strangling arm while you peel the hook, there can be trouble, right? You really have to be careful with that. But he's actually pretty good at it. He's pretty good about collecting that hand and peeling the hook. You'll see him get reversals from this all the time, right? So that's a pretty good thing that he does. On the other hand, this kind of feeds into some of the problems he has with hand fighting in later stages anyway, with some of the chokes. There's kind of like in the Khabib fight, this was the case, it was a little bit lackadaisical where they were able to peel the grip and then snatch the choke through. And it's because he's willing to hold it with one hand, sometimes two, and even two doesn't necessarily solve the problem if you don't have the hands in the right places. There's a lot that goes into it. I'm just sort of pointing out he is pretty good in scenarios where he feels like he's got a comfortable hold on the strangling arm, peeling the hook, and then turning into them to get the reversal. It's something he does a lot. However, that willingness to hold on to that hand and the strangle arm in some more dire scenarios can also cost him. So it's a benefit, it's a cost. It's a mixed bag. Turns away, but he's experienced. He's got a lot of experience being put in bad positions. Again, I'm going to say it one more time, a black belt in jiu-jitsu. You'll notice a lot of times he just turns away and gives up his back. I think he feels like he can make his way to the fence and then he can put his back along the fence. But you'll see a lot of scenarios in the BSD fight and other ones where he just turns his back. He just doesn't really care that he's giving up his back. That can cost him if you do that against a guy like Islam Makhachev. However, the counter to that is look how many times he's done it and gotten away with it. More than gotten away with it, thrived, right? Again, some good, some bad there. And then lastly, I don't need to tell you about this. You guys know the score. He jumps the guillotine probably more than is advised. He did it. I forgot that he had done it against Khabib. He does it against Khabib. And then the switch issues. This is another one where you'll see him look for the switch in certain cases and come up short and get reversed. This is the case in the Michael Chandler fight. It's the case in the Khabib fight. I don't know if he'll encounter this one in the Islam Makhachev fight. We'll have to see. And there's a couple problems with the switch as he attempts it that we'll go into and look. So, good down blocking, peels the hooks with the hands. Obviously, he's experienced himself. If you give him a little bit of space, he will make you pay for it. There's a lot that goes right with him. Big power, obviously, as well. We're not even talking about that. But there are some other things that could cost him. Now, couple notes here. Number one, my standard disclaimer, I don't present these findings to you to be the best or the only or the most complete, just mine. I always encourage you to hear what other analysts have to say. That's number one. Number two, I've had to accommodate this presentation to make sure that listen, the UFC has in what I would consider to be a very aggressive and I would say incorrect view of what constitutes fair use. So I have literally made this a series of photo slides to put this together. Now it's still going to look, I hope, pretty good, but I had to accommodate it a little bit to make sure that I can make this presentation and deliver it to you. All right? So with that in mind, let's take a look at some of the evidence for my claims. We'll start with the Charles Oliveira fight. Now, what's interesting about this fight is Oliveira never gets the takedown. He's able to get to the back, and then from the back, he's able to do what he wants. But this is one of those cases we've talked about guys like Oliveira, Aljamain Sterling. They're not really looking for takedowns all the time. They just want back exposure. So you'll see this in the case with, here's old Charles right there. You'll see this with him. He's going to step through, right? He's going to step through and kind of change stances, right? So here he is in orthodox stance, southpaw obviously for Dustin Poirier. He's going to switch through, get underneath the hook. Poirier tries to catch him with the hook here, right? Look at that. Opens it up and tries to catch him, but he's going to miss with it, just like that. You're going to see Oliveira get underneath. It's kind of like almost like a duck under, not quite, but then he's just going to get to the back and he's going to run him to the fence, right? So there you go. Not even a takedown, just needed back exposure. Just needs to get past his elbow, underneath, and then around, and here we are. Now we're up against the fence. All right, a little bit later, he's got this outside hook in. He's going to try to sag. He's sagging his weight off to the side, as well as, so the weight is kind of being sagged here to anchor, as well as being over the top. This is something you'll see Poirier do when he gives up his back to actually prevent getting his back taken. It's something that you saw in the Islam Makhachev fight that Alexander Volkanovski was able to do very effectively to prevent taking his back, but he doesn't get it quite right here. We'll look at the differences a little bit later. In this one, his posture has been all the way over, and in fact, you can see very clearly right here, he's on his hands. He's pressed his hands into the mat, right, a little bit. So this is a very, very different scenario than the one we'll look at a little bit later. And what you have here is, excuse me, let me clear that off. What you have here is almost like a spiral ride for Oliveira. This jiu-jitsu is all about having placeholders. I'm going to hold this with my arm and then use my hook to take that spot, which is exactly what he's going to do. Right there's that spiral ride. Right, he's just going to bring this over the. He's going to bring the strangle arm. I think he had the strangle arm. We'll take a look at it in just a second. Behind the elbow, he's going to bring it around, and then with this one, he's going to bring the hook over the top of it here, just like that. Right. Now, Poirier keeps his elbow in here to prevent the full back take, which is nice. Again, black belt in jiu-jitsu, he knows what he's doing. He's just going up against really tough guys. So he can't quite get, Oliveira can't quite get what he wants initially, so he abandons the hook. But you'll notice, look at him putting the weight down on Poirier, keeping his head lower than his hips, right? Keeping his hands kind of glued to the floor. It allows Oliveira to sag weight without falling off necessarily. It's a nice little move by him. And then finally, Poirier is going to come square. He's going to remove that hand because he wants Oliveira to fall off, but I think they're a little bit too close to the fence. And anyway, he's glued just the same. So the right arm is the strangle arm, so he's got the underhook on this side. You can't see it, but that's what's keeping him up on there. And he's going to stand up a little bit, right? So there's the strangle arm over on the right side. So he's going to, you can see him, look, pushing his weight down, right? Like this to keep, there's daylight here, but you just notice the pressure he's putting on Poirier to enable to grow onto the back. Poirier comes up. That's going to give Oliveira everything he needs, right? Watch. Here we are. Poirier comes up. There comes the hook right there. As soon as you clear space on the hip, he fills it with the hook just like that. And then they're going to walk to the fence here a little bit. This is the ending sequence. It's going to be a little bit hard to tell. We'll take a better look at this in the Khabib fight. But you're just going to see him. He's going to peel this hand. This hand is kind of all the way through. And this is sort of what I mean about not hand fighting as hard as he could at all times. I think he feels like he can either turn away with a choke, which at times he has shown the ability to, or kind of tuck his way through it, or, you know, in other words, he just doesn't need to occupy it all the time. And obviously, there's been cases where, look, Oliveira covering the back, obviously, and putting his pressure down on this, so to keep the head down, he can't really hand fight as effectively if he was potentially sitting, right, where you would have a little bit more room to maneuver. Just the same, he's just going to peel this one off. So you got the red tape on Oliveira and the blue on Dustin. So Dustin reaches up to grab the securing arm here. He's going to peel that down in just a second, right? He's going to peel that off just like that. He peels it off, so you can see him grabbing. And by the way, he grabs closer to the end of the lever, not middle of the lever, and that enables him to get a little bit more control. So it's a small little detail, but it's a pretty good one from Dustin Poirier. People are like, oh, he's grabbing the gloves. If you just grab over the top of the hand, that's perfectly okay. In fact, better. People think you want to grab the wrist to peel hands, or even down here. You don't. You want to peel it as far along the lever as you can. Now, you can't, like, you know, grab their fingers and stuff, but you can cover it like that, right? So he's going to peel and pull, but as he pulls down like that, you're going to see him wrench through, just like this. Like, watch this arm kind of wrench through. See that? He's going to wrench through. There's the blue. He's trying to cover that hand. This is Poirier trying to cover the hand. And when he does, as he pulls it down, excuse me, you're going to see as he does this, excuse me, what you're going to see is a simple sort of stripping of the grip. You're just going to see the securing hand come loose and then pop it off just like, boom, just like that. He's going to pop it off. It's hard to see on this particular occasion. We'll take a better look at it later. But it's a situation where I'm just trying to illustrate, even though it's a little hard to tell some of the details there, a willingness to kind of engage in some of these like fairly secure-ish choke, or the choke is close to being on moments. He does it when he peels the hooks too, gets away with it a lot. Again, he makes it work for himself, but there can be scenarios where this can backfire, and of course that is what ends up sealing the choke completely, right? He pops the grip off, he strips it with his hand, and then comes right back up like that. It's good work. And then of course that's going to close the show. All right, here's the Chandler fight. So take a look. Look at Poirier's hips. They're glued to the fence, glued. This is obviously going to create problems because here's Chandler just swinging away, bang, bang, bang. And then, as you can see, Poirier is trying to feed him an uppercut here. It's not going to get through, and you've got Poirier square to the mat. So pay attention to the details here just for a second, one more time. He got to this position because Chandler was aggressively striking him. And he just backs up and backs up and backs up and backs up, and then to the point where he gets to this. Once you're here, yeah, you can face your opponent and you can potentially counter them. That is true, that happens. You can see stuff like that. I think in the BSD fight you see stuff like that, but at the same time, it's just going to create a level change opportunity for a guy like Michael Chandler. So here he is, he's going to get on the double, he's going to easily pick it up and drop him down. This is kind of common. Now, Poirier is looking for that guillotine choke, but there's nothing really there. All right, a little bit later in the fight, he's looking for the Kimura. There's nothing really happening. He sits up. Poirier likes to do this, right? As soon as you give him some space for a ground and pound, he'll sit up and then scoot his back to the fence. That's good defense on his part, right? And now he's going to sort of post a hand and I think try and turn his hips over, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, just like that. And you're going to see Michael Chandler kind of get behind him on his hips here a little bit as well, collapsing that hook, which is going to enable the whizzer, or the would-be whizzer. It would enable him to go right to the back. Just like that. Let's see if he can get it. Yeah, now he's got past it. Now he just has to circle around if he can. Let's see if he can get it. Yeah, he's going to come around the back just like that. And this is what I mean about Poirier. So Poirier's got this arm here. Guys will put pressure on him and he'll just give up the whizzer. The whizzer is what is preventing people. If I have a whizzer here, right, what's a whizzer? A whizzer is an overhook of an underhook. And if someone is trying to get behind you and I have a whizzer, it can block them. That's typically what it's used for. You can do a little bit more things with it, but that's a big one. And so you'll just kind of notice here, he's just going to give it up. Just gives it up. Like, look, this isn't quite a whizzer. It's a little bit more of a crossface, but it's a similar kind of principle. He'll just throw it by, and then now he has to give up the back, right? Kind of something you want to pay attention to what extent is he able to maintain the whizzer? Does he give it up? And if he gives it up against a guy like Islam, what will that mean? All right, a little bit later, we'll go through here. Now, this is a case where you can see he's still on his hands, Michael Chandler doesn't, the big part here, Michael Chandler has an underhook here, and I think he has an underhook on the other side. So there's nothing really securing over the top of the shoulder and then underneath, which is a much better backpack than two, and then you're kind of sagging off the side. So I think he's just going to get, he has to give it up. He has to kind of give it up here a little bit. It's a good way to prevent the back. Again, you would want the head to be a little bit higher. You want the head to be slightly above the hips, facing into the, actually touching into the fence. But nevertheless, he's able to get the back, he's able to give up the back without really giving up the back. All right, a little bit later, you're going to see him want to hit this switch, right? He's going to want to dig in through here and then come out the other side. But as he does, there's nothing to grab. Right? Two problems here. One, with a switch, when you put the elbow behind you, it's got to really put pressure on the back of their tricep so you can dig them in and then you can come around the corner, right? That's one problem. The other problem here is locked hands. The locked hands means they can, even if you put pressure on it, they can just run it in a circle and then come out the other side, which is exactly what happens here, right? He tries to lift on this inside thigh, but Chandler just lifts the hook in the air and moves it away, and still has locked hands around the legs. Now, that's a little bit slightly better position for Poirier, for sure, but the switch itself doesn't work. You'll see him go for that switch, I think, a number of times. All right, and here he is, giving up the back again, right? Look at that, just turning in. Here's Poirier, legs being lifted. He's going to turn his hips over like that, and he's just going to give up the back one more time. Now, you might be saying, oh, well, he's giving up the back against Michael Chandler. He wouldn't do that against other guys. But the problem is, I would say this tendency tends to show itself, I won't say irrespective of opponent, but I wouldn't say it's also opponent dependent. All right, a little bit later, he's going to stand up. Okay, let's take a look at this. So here comes Chandler. Switching stances, comes in with the hook. He's firing back. Comes in again. Boom, he's kicking. So look, pay attention here. This is Poirier's starting position. Let's see where he finishes. Well, it's hard to tell because it's moving. But look at him. He's kind of near the edge of the monster sign, right? And then he just kind of goes straight back. Bit of a problem. And then he gets pushed back. And then look at his hips. Square, right? And then Chandler's just going to dig in for, there's that left uppercut again, trying to time it, which is a nice punch to time. It's just a little bit hard under the circumstances. Gets pressed into the fence. He's going to get lifted again, just like that, and he's going to get taken right to the floor. Boom. Something that shows up a fair bit. All right, you can see some. So he tries for a triangle here. Doesn't get very close, right? Can't quite lock it in any kind of way, but it's threatening a little bit. It's keeping Chandler honest. There's the triangle attempt. It's keeping him honest. He's just going to pin this knee to the chest and then circle out. Just like that. See, or just like that. Well, he doesn't quite circle. He kind of throws it by. Just the same. And you see Poirier putting the arm out as a frame. He's going to turn and roll away, and the hips are going to be covered by Michael Chandler just the same. And here he is taking the back one more time. So we've seen this tendency now to just turn away to get to a better position. And listen, there's benefits to being like this. Like, not so much like this, but there's benefits to having your base underneath you if you can get there. You can just do a lot more with it. But again, there's a cost-benefit analysis. It's not really right or wrong per se. It can be right or wrong for the circumstances or right or wrong for the opponent in the circumstances. But if it's a habit for you, if it's where you go to and you do it against an opponent who is very unforgiving with that, obviously bad things can happen. All right, a little bit later, you see him getting kind of cross-faced here on top. He's got this leg, which is almost acting like a little bit like a Turk, and he's like a bit of a ride. He's got trying to establish inside control on the wrist. He's going to throw him down and then face him just like this. But Poirier pretty good about getting his hips back at this point, just like that, and puts his back up against the fence. This is good for him, and then he'll turn his base over and stand. Typically, this is what he does. Oops, excuse me. Actually, he's going to try here and not be able to get it. There it is. You can see, watch. You can see Chandler has his hands clasped here. Poirier getting to an elbow. He would have to this leg is too far along the hip to get underneath him, but he can threaten with it potentially or just certainly disrupt the base. So what do you see Chandler do? He's going to grab that wrist just like that, and then he's going to feed it to his left hand like that, and then he's just going to pull, go on with his head, push, and that's going to collapse the base just like that. of Dustin Poirier. It's good work from Michael Chandler. Obviously, he gets choked out in the next round. Last one here. Changes stance. Comes through again. Look at him just backing him up with strikes. Overhand, overhand. Backing him up with strikes, backing him up with strikes. Underneath. Is he square? No, he's more bladed this one. And he gets the down block on this one. It's a high crotch. I actually love this takedown attempt. It's a high crotch where you're going to see. Now, Poirier is trying to come out to the back end of the high crotch, which is good. He's got a cross face here. This is the cross face. He's got a cross face here, and he's got a hand basically in the tailbone of the backside of the thigh. He's going to use that to block and then turn. So what happens is, you can right there, you see that? He's going to block and then turn. You could put this behind the leg. You could put it actually underneath the belly. There's a couple ways you could do that. So let's see what happens here. So he's turning. He's going to put this hook on the outside leg of Chandler. Let's see if I can show you that. Just like that. See him blocking right there. That little, see if I can get a good look at it right there. Blocking the outside part of the leg there. You see that? That should, in theory, enable him to get where he wants to go. But the problem is with one of these, when you circle out, you got to really you have to circle, and then you got to really put pressure down on them and away. And he doesn't really do that. And so what ends up happening is Chandler backs up a little bit, tries to dump him. See this? He's going to just sort of single leg dump him. This is a good job by Poirier of not giving up the position. He's actually going to get his leg back. Watch it. The leg that was around here is actually going to go back. That's really nice. But when he does this, he actually comes square again. He needs to be kind of over a little bit at an angle, enough of an angle, but he doesn't get the angle. And so because he comes, here he's at an angle, because he comes square now, Chandler just lifts, right? You got to keep turning on that angle. So the high C, the high crotch, ended up being a good opportunity for him, and he slams it down. And this is kind of nice, right? Slams him down, tries to step around for the back, right? Here he is. But what do you notice about old clever Poirier? Whoop, hand blocking the hook. And so because the hand is blocking the hook, plus he's going to go to the non-strangle side, he's just going to peel that. Look at him peeling that hook off. There he is. Great work by him. The timing on blocking that was fantastic. Chandler was about to have a high C to a dump to a back take, and it was because he timed this so well. Boom. Blocking it, doesn't allow, comes up to his base, and again, goes to the non-strangle side like this. That is great. Really, really great work from Dustin Poirier there. So again, it's positives and it's negatives. All right, here's the BSD fight. BSD backing him up straight. Look at Poirier going straight. He's going to move to his own left. He gets hit with a cross there. There's the hook. He's going to grab it. This is not, I would not really call this down blocking. Not this case. There are effective cases of down blocking. I'm not going to show them to you, all of them, but I want to be clear. The tape would show that the down blocking is pretty good. In any case, BSD just kind of grabs this leg, right? Bent over like this. And people say that this is bad to do this. In real wrestling, this is bad to do. In MMA wrestling, Craig Jones has talked about this. It doesn't really matter all that much, especially if you can run them right back to the fence, because then you can just fix your posture. Yeah, here, when you're bent over like this is not a strong position. But if you can run someone back to the fence, you can get to a strong position, and then who cares? Which is exactly what he does. Runs it back. So again, and then look at Poirier. He's come square here as well, right? And then he's going to jump the guillotine. Right, boop, he's gonna sit for it. All right, so he jumps guillotine. We'll fast forward a little bit later, you're gonna see BSD jump over and then corkscrew back, right? So he jumps over and then he's gonna turn back into him here, just like this. He's controlling the legs here. I still like that of Poirier. No, Poirier is not controlling any of the legs here. He does get to an elbow, but you're not seeing him exert control over BSD. BSD's on top, he's still exerting control, and then BSD's gonna clear this space, and then, yep, there is like the belly whizzer, essentially, and then he's going to use that to block and crossface, and now he's gonna take the back just like that. So scrambles could get a little bit funky on things for him as well at times. And there he is, just standing. He puts outside leg first, which is correct, and then he stands. All right, BSD's got that same hook that Charles Oliveira had. Let's see what he can do with it. He tries to take the back. He's got that hook in. He's kind of got the second hook in. It's a little hard to tell. Ah, there's the hand. Watch him peel this sucker. Peels it, holds it. Now, Here is what I mean about just taking risks. I bet he felt like this choking arm is not very secure. It's not very far back. You'll notice BSD is putting some pressure on the back of his head, but he's standing. It's not the same as the Charles Oliveira one where the head was lower than the hips. The head is much higher this time. Peeling the hook. This one's not secure. This one's barely on there. So he's able to like reach through and grab, but you'll see him peel this hook, step off just like this, boom. BSD looks like he's going to try and hold through and roll with it, but he can't get it. And he just peels it off and then gets on top. It's great work. Again, when you peel the hook with your hand, you're making a very, very calculated call. You'll notice a situation where BJ Penn, for example, rocks Matt Hughes. And Matt Hughes gets his back taken. You can see him fishing with the hand to try and like peel the hook off. But doing that when you're hurt and you've got a world champion jiu-jitsu black belt guy on your back, that doesn't seem like a great call. Here is early in the fight, we're still at 321, peeling the hook with the hand just like this. And again, look at BSD. He doesn't really have, he's got a strangle arm here, but he's really off balance. Notice that Poirier is not this way or this way to the mat. His shoulders are, he's got the young Dro, the shoulder lean. He's got the shoulder lean going on, and that's rotating his trunk and everything else. So that is what enables this hook peeling to work. It can be bad, it can be good. He makes it good here. All right, a little bit later, he gets hit with a right hand. You don't see a good illustration of it, but then he comes back, and you can see him right here. He's got the underhook here to kind of the down blocking, but he gets run square again. He doesn't elect to go square. He gets pushed square there, and you can see he tries to the same kind of thing. High C. This is more like a head inside single, and so he's able to get basically a snap down and then turn from it. And then with that, he's able to get his leg free. So here is BSD with this. But now he's in this kind of position, right, where this is not a strong position. And so because he's got this head pinch, Poirier does, he's able to like return his own leg behind him in the process. So you have BSD kind of wrestling from a suboptimal position, head pinch. This is what I mean. This is more of the kind of this is not pure down blocking, but more of first order takedown defense being very, very good, especially if you give him weak positions. He'll take advantage of it. BSD is aggressive, but he doesn't have very solid and tight positions. Makhachev, I feel like, is the opposite, but nevertheless, if he gets hurt, he could be just the same. All right, a little bit later. Here he is, head inside single. He picks it up to try and run it. He's going to capture the leg. And I like this one. So he holds this, thinking he's going to try and dump him. Right? What does Poirier do? Poirier's got that strangle arm through, trying not to, trying not to fall over. And BSD actually kind of crosses his step here because he's going to use this just to push Poirier in and then make him go square like that, right? Just kind of run him. So he tries to dump to get him to force his weight onto the leg. And then when he does that, he rotates him back into the leg. And that enables him to get the hands. He can't quite get his hands where he wants here. He can't get it behind the hip. But if he can press him into the fence by making him stabilize on this leg, the other hand can come around just like that. That's good work from BSD. But there's that guillotine, and of course, what do you know? He's going to jump that sucker, right? Boom. All right, and he gets out. So here's a situation where he's just going to turn away. Look, underhook on that far side arm, and then just turns. He just turns. BSD doesn't make a whole lot of use of it, but again, just kind of giving up the back to get away. It's got benefits, it's got costs. We will see what happens on Saturday if we get there. And then finally, he gets hit with that big left uppercut, right? Watch, right there. Boom, gets hit with a big shot. And then comes back in on that double, runs him square to the fence, and then he jumps guillotine again. So like rather than splitting his base and doing the traditional kind of thing that you're supposed to do, right? Getting your feet along the fence line, turning, you're whizzering hard, far wrist control. He just keeps jumping guillotine on this guy. I wonder if he'll do that against Islam as well. He eventually gets moved to mount. Let's see how, and this is a bad position, dude. If someone's in mount and then they've scooped your arms up like this, that is not ideal, to put it mildly. All right, he sits up. He's going to roll through. Excuse me. BSD is going to try and take the back. But you'll notice he does have the inside wrist here. He's going to use that to flatten him. Like, let's see if he can do it. No, he doesn't do it. He tries to go for the choke instead. And then, what do you notice? Here's Poirier sitting. Now, this is different. Remember I told you in the first part Where against Charles Oliveira, when you're standing and your weight is over you, you don't have quite the same leverage to hand fight. Well, now you're sitting, you've got a little bit more. Now he's posted on one hand. He'll give that up here, you can see, because now he's got two. But this is much, much better. So let's see how he fights this off. Let's see. He's got his head turned. Let's see. Can't quite get the... Oh, there's that hand reaching through to peel the hook. Let's see what he can do. He doesn't fear the strangle arm at all, right? And he's not even holding the strangle arm. He just peels the hook, realizing that the control is weak. You'll notice he's a little low for BSD. You would want, if you're BSD, you would want to be tucked underneath him a little bit better if you could. And then he's just going to turn in. He peels the hook, posts on an elbow, and then just turns through, comes out underneath the elbow, and then back on him. Risky, but he makes it work. All right, and then here's the Khabib fight. Last but certainly not least. Khabib lowers level, right? First of all, why is Poirier here? And look at him, square. Square to Khabib, square. He gets backed up with strikes here. You can go and look at it. Don't take my word for it. 341 of round number one. Go see for yourself. He gets backed up here. Khabib shoots in on a double, cutting at an angle so it doesn't end up being super square, but then runs him here and then lowers his lock down to the knee level. Now, Poirier does a good job of this kind of head pinch and splitting his base here. So let's see what Khabib does to handle this. All right, so we're at 338. They kind of play a little game here back and forth. Now they're at 313. You can see he's got two hands underneath that arm of Khabib, right here and right here, right? So he's got the 2-on-1. If you can break their grip, they can't get a hold of you to lift you and turn you. So it's a good idea, potentially. So what happens? This is what I want you to pay attention to, and this is where things with Islam get a little bit different. What Khabib is going to do, where you didn't see this from Oliveira, and you didn't see this from Chandler, and you didn't see this from BSD, but you'll see it from Khabib, which makes you wonder if you're going to see it from Islam. Not the same guy, but a lot of the same skill set. He's going to make Poirier balance on this leg. That's one. He's going to run him to make him hop up and down, and then he's going to kick out the post leg. Right? Pick him up, and then bop, just like that. You see what I mean? He's just going to kick it out. He's going to pull up on the leg. He's going to lift his weight into the air, make him hop up and down, and then kick out the post leg like that. Now, Poirier ends up getting away a little bit, but the amount of work that this causes, the amount of time that it takes is really a big deal. It's a big, big deal. And so you can see now he can get a comfortable shot on his hips. He can begin to put his weight down, force him to his hands, right? Just like that. He's going to tip him over, almost like a tilt. Now Khabib can get him to work. He has broken him down to his hands and his knees. Before, Poirier was up on his feet. He's not up on his feet anymore, and then you've got Khabib putting weight on you, just draining you. There's no threat of a choke here, but Jesus, he is beginning to work, and it's that ability to connect hands and feet at the same time. It's typical of a lot of these Dagestani guys. Khabib is one of the sort of the best examples of it, where they can wrestle you up with their hands, and then they're going for trips, then they're going for foot sweeps at the same time. They're moving you, you're moving yourself around, and then all of a sudden, look at, for example, Islam and Charles Oliveira. He threw a knee to the body to Charles Oliveira. Oliveira responded with a knee to his own, and that shifted his weight. And sure enough, what does Islam do? He throws him, right? Kicking out post legs, getting people to balance on a single leg and running them around is crucial to understanding some of these Dagestani guys, and especially Khabib and Islam. They're both good at using throws and trips in ways that a lot of the American or traditional wrestling guys just don't do. Some guys do it. Here's that switch, right? So let's look at it. You got locked hands from Khabib. You would have to put a lot of pressure back here, a lot. And he kind of reaches for it. You can see it, but there's no real pressure. Plus, he's got the locked hands, so Khabib's able to just run around it. And then he's able to mount as a consequence. So he gets him, right? If you're a Poirier, you're going to make a hard turn here, hard turn. So he makes that hard turn, and he keeps going to try and come up. But as you do, now look at him. His hips are kind of facing up. Khabib's are locked down. He's controlled by Poirier is controlled by the hands, and Khabib has his base completely under him, so he just steps over. Just steps over. All right. And then, of course, you can see him working a little bit later. Okay, this is still round one. Looking at him working here, working here. He's got that hook in on this side. This one is not. It's still on a knee on the ground. Poirier comes up to his base. You see that Khabib doesn't really follow, but keeps his weight down like this. He's going to let go of that hook in just a second, just like that, come out the backside. right? A little bit later. But again, notice what you're seeing from Poirier, just sort of letting the back be. He will let people be, he'll let opponents get to the back. And then the end of that round, you can see he's going to drive him back to his hands, just like this. He's got a bit of a, this one is not behind the arm. He's got it over like the top, like a strangle arm. Khabib gets his leg in between, and I bet he's going to take him backwards here, right? And that's exactly what this looks like. He's going to make it so that Poirier can't backstep, right? So if this leg, look at this leg from Khabib. Excuse me. Right here. See it in between, just like that? See it right there? Just like that, right in between. See that? This is going to prevent Poirier from splitting his base and backstepping. And so as a consequence, let's see what Khabib does here. He's going to, see, he's still occupying the space, Yep, he's going to now trip and send him backwards. So Poirier is like, oh, I've got 2-on-1 here. This will prevent him from getting a double, but he's blocked that space. He's just going to send him backwards, just like that. Boom, he's going to pull it out. Whoop. Pulls out that post leg. Dude, he doesn't, this is a different kind of wrestling. They can double and single you, but they can double, single, trip, foot sweep, any throw, Uchimata, Harai Goshi, Sasai, Tai Toshi, you name it, they can do everything. And then he gets on top, just like this. And then he goes right back to the takedown. All right, here's end of round one. Here's that same switch again. You got to put pressure back. So you just see him lift the leg, come back. What happens again? Gets right back to mount. It's the exact same sequence. Khabib has locked hands, and you're not putting pressure on the back of that arm to really force him down, so it just doesn't work. All right, round two. Here he is. Boom. Double. Runs him back to the fence. Let's see. Jumps guillotine. Don't know how advisable that is, but it is what it is. And then he gets out. All right, round two, a little bit later. Here is Poirier trying to turn into him. So you see I think he's got a bit of a belly whizzer here. And he's got that, no, he's got the leg trapped, almost like a cradle, and just rolls him back through, comes on top. And Poirier is just going to give up his back and kind of turn away here a little bit, I think, right? Let's see. Gets his back to the fence. This part's nice, but now he's got his legs wrapped, almost shelved, essentially. Khabib just stays on top. There's Poirier posting on the hand. What did we talk about in round one, right? That far side arm preventing the back take. Poirier just kind of gives it up here. Khabib kind of throws it by, and now look where he gets. It's just one of those tendencies where it's like, I think, makes the case, I think, to himself that, and it works a lot of times, that I'd rather give that up and then have my hands free to either base or hand fight or whatever I want them for, rather than trying to whizzer in a position where it's mechanically uncomfortable. And I can understand that. It just comes with some trade-offs. And here comes Khabib. All right, round three. What does he do? Throws like, you can see, he throws like a wild feint or a strike and gets underneath it, runs him back. Boom, just runs through the down block here, by the way. I do think that Poirier has good down blocking, but this one he just kind of runs through it. Again, there are examples of it. We're not going to go through all of them or many of them, but the tape is there. And he jumps guillotine again, not advisable. This one's a little bit closer. He actually ends up getting out of it, but you get the idea. Okay, here's the last sequence on the hand fighting, and this kind of illustrates what I mean about Poirier. Hands on the mat, right? Khabib is not really threatening with the strangle just yet. He's going to kind of pull him up. Look, hand here. Look, hands on the mat. Khabib's going to pull him up like that. See that? He's going to yank him up a little bit. All right? And with that, Poirier brings a foot down. That's good. And then you'll see Khabib's like, okay, I can just take the back with one hook, or both hooks but one leg, one Poirier leg. So here he is. This is the strangle arm, right? And you see Poirier's got a hand on it. In fact, he looks up a little bit here to his corner, right? This is what I mean, though. Hand on the mat, foot on the mat, one hand on the strangle. Dude, even sometimes if someone's strong enough, even two hands is not enough. So it's a risky call to play it this way. And so Khabib knows that and sees that and punches him, right? Once, twice. And he's going to use this dynamic to then strip the grip off so he can get what he wants, just like that, right? He punches and then kind of comes on top and then just layers through like that. And that is what enables him and by the way, notice, Poirier's kind of down here. Khabib is going to strip and then he's going to pull up as he does at the same time. So he's going to strip here while pulling up. 2 motions in opposite directions. Bah, just like that. And then that hand's going to come up, and then that joker's just going to be way too tight, and then he's going to finish it off. So again, we go one more time back to what I showed you. There is evidence of good down blocking. I want to be clear about that. It's just these are cases where the down blocking wasn't necessarily enough, but the overall course of evidence shows that when he needs it, it's there. Gets square. We saw a lot of that. Gets backed up. We saw a lot of that. Peels hooks with the hands. Big portion of what he does. Does it very well in a lot of fights. It saved him. It won him fights in certain cases. But it can also come with some risks. Turns away, but is experienced. You can see some of these situations. He really knows when to go, when not to go. But he plays a risky game. And so at times it can elevate him. At times it can bring him down. It's really all, we'll see what happens on Saturday. And then the ghillie and the switch issues. You can see he'll jump guillotine, get underneath the roll and give up his back, or some of those switch issues, and then he ends up getting mounted. So it's some suboptimal grappling decisions at times that put him in bad positions. And against a grappler like Islam, he is somewhat unforgiving in that sense, very, very strong positionally. And again, one more time, those Dagestani guys, they don't just go for their doubles and the singles and everything else, which I think which I would say Poirier does a pretty good job of defending. It's when they get your upper body control, they throw your weight past you, make you balance on one leg, and then they cut that thing out. And they are so gifted at that. Really, really a big difference maker. So, hey, I don't think I have to say, you guys already know, Poirier's got a tall order in front of him, but he has certainly proved to be one of the best lightweights of my lifetime, and maybe, just maybe, he'll become champion on Saturday. You'll see what he has to kind of work with and overcome, hopefully with a presentation like this. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you loved it, subbed. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, enjoy the fights.